Every great recruiting pipeline has to start somewhere, especially if it is as unlikely as Nova Scotia, Canada to Jacksonville, Florida. While she wasn't the first Canadian to play at JU, senior Julia Burton opened the doors for the current group of 6 on the roster today.
Coming into JU, it was actually just a miracle that we were connected, Coach Copham and I actually.
Julia Burton, our senior, one of our seniors now from Halifax, Nova Scotia, she was committed somewhere else, and the coach where she was going to go play ended up losing his job at the end of his season. Well, happened to be her dad's college roommate and played soccer with her dad, so there was really a family tie where she was going. And now that the family tie wasn't, once he lost his job and changed places, they decided to kind of open their search, and we were still looking. We had some spots available and ended up being a good fit.
What Canadian would love to play soccer outdoors all year round?
It was a difficult transition, as one could imagine, but Julia's resiliency surprised even her own family.
I'm a huge homebody, so that was kind of the biggest concern for my family and I. When I first came down, my parents thought, there's no way she's going to last. She'll be home at Christmas. She can't be this far away. And unfortunately for them, I stuck it out, and looks like potentially in the future I might be staying down here too if I'm able to.
She was joined the following year by Ashley Poirier, whom Julia had known in Nova Scotia, and it turned out to be a great fit for her as well.
Well, I know I wanted to go away for university. I didn't want to stay in Canada. And once I found out Julia was coming here, she kind of talked me into looking to leave. And she got in contact with the coaches before she came. So when I was looking, she gave me coaches' information, and my coaches at home knew Coach. So I just started emailing him, and I knew I wanted to go somewhere where I knew at least a couple people, but I didn't want to go to somewhere where I didn't know anyone. So I guess that was a big part, just knowing someone that's already here.
Julia then helped plan the biggest move for the future of Canadian soccer at JU.
Canada Games team was training and getting ready, and they were kind of thinking, let's go on a trip somewhere. I said, hey, why don't you come to Florida? There's some great universities, they're all pretty close. So talking to Coach, I said, listen, take a look at these players.
So I got to see them a couple games here in Jacksonville when they were in town.
They came out and they kicked our butts. I think he realized then that there were some quality players that just weren't getting seen, and I think we got some great steals on the 4 of them.
With Julia here, we kind of knew what we would get. We knew how their training worked, got to know their coaching staffs up there, and just kind of formed a relationship with them. And a lot of times recruiting is a relational thing, not just with the players you recruit, but also with the coaching staffs, especially that far away. They have to feel comfortable this school's going to be a good fit and take care of our players. And so we kind of started that relationship.
A lot of the schools at home that we were all looking at were small schools too. They don't really have big ones there. So I think it's kind of like we wanted to go to a small school but away from home.
For the freshmen, there were plenty of reasons JU was the right fit, from the small school mentality to the family-like atmosphere it provided.
A lot of people go for the big schools, but Nova Scotia is a small place, so coming here is just a little, it's just small, so everyone's close and family.
From Nova Scotia, everyone's really friendly there, and when we came down here, everyone was super, probably even more friendlier than they were at home. So just having those friends who are there for you even here, it's been a really big factor.
I would not want to come here if I didn't know anyone. That's just how I am, so it made it a lot easier coming with my 3 best friends.
I know that these girls are a huge part to my life, so just knowing that coming to college with them and just an extra time to spend with them would be amazing.
I would never go to a school where I didn't know anyone. It's nice to know that if some things go wrong, you always have those people to rely on.
The adaptation became even easier with Julia acting as the mother hen for the group.
I see myself more as a mother hen off the field. On the field, I know they can hold their ground. My biggest thing is just making sure that everyone stays happy. If they're not happy, want to go out for lunch, want to go do this, and it's just, if they're happy off the field, they'll likely produce the results on the field.
Julia has a special connection to this freshman class, as her sister Rachel is one of the newcomers this year.
There's some times where I feel there's things that I just want to talk to my family about, and now that I have a sister here all year round, it's kind of wherever I go, at the farthest 100 meters apart on away trips. So I've been very lucky having her come.
The biggest recruiting tool for JU to use on those hailing from north of the border?
I love the weather here, and the campus is beautiful. I'm a person who loves summer and loves the sun, so that definitely played a huge role in me coming here.
Naturally, it took some adapting to come down here, but a lot of that came on the field.
I'd say that the Canadians are sometimes more aggressive or more physical.
We were all brought up in under a coach who was very into getting into your tackles, the way you play in games, you play in practice. But we were also a huge group of, like, there was like 40 kids in this program. And obviously here, where we have less players, we don't want to really get in hard on your tackles just in case of injury. Like, you don't want a kid having to sit out for a year because of going into a hard tackle in practice.
While they have fit in nicely during games, off the field is still where you can tell differences between the Canadian players and their American counterparts. Most notably, their love of hockey.
They all love hockey. One of them's brother plays hockey. He's a high-level hockey player there. He's in the juniors programs now, but they all are big fans of hockey for sure.
Rachel and I were brought up in a hockey fan family.
Nova Scotia, since they don't have a team necessarily, they kind of bounce around. They've got different teams for different either family reasons, or they know somebody, an uncle or a cousin or somebody plays within a team.
Growing up, my dad was cheering for the Montreal Canadiens, so I guess I just kind of picked up on that.
Buffalo, Montreal Canadiens.
Crazy enough, I'm not a Canadiens hockey fan or a Maple Leaf fan. I'm actually a Chicago Blackhawks fan.
Okay. They love Canada hockey for sure. That's kind of the big one. Over the NHL, Canada hockey, whether it's the Olympics or the any kind of championships, it's the Canadian team. That's the one they're always talking about. And unfortunately, they've kind of gotten the better of us.
Oh, I know. There is also quite the rivalry between the two countries in women's soccer.
Every year when there's even a friendly, there's some headbutting in the locker room.
For the last Olympics, we watched together, and it was like just Julia and I against the rest of the team. So when we lost, it was a huge deal, but we thought we should have won.
Probably the coaching staff gives them as much of a hard time as anybody because the U.S. has had a bit of success against them, but it's always a great game, and there's, it's quite the rivalry, as you said, because those are two of the best teams in the world on the women's side. So it's always fun when there's a game, especially if it's a friendly, that we'll make sure to take our jabs if we have a chance, since we can't do that with hockey too often.
Now, if we win, though, I'm not going to let it die.
Just so much fun to watch because there's role models. We have role models on both teams. Like, we look up to people on both teams. They all, they're just so good.
I mean, there's girls on the U.S. women's team that we look up to, but there's also obviously Christine Sinclair on our team that we look up to, and many other people.
Both teams have respect for each other, and I find that kind of helped carry us down here.
Yeah.
The connection between the two teams.
When the current group of players move on, the hope is that it won't be the end of the Northern Pipeline.
Our philosophy in recruiting is we want the best players that we can find that are right fit here at Jacksonville University. So for us, we'll be looking in Nova Scotia to see if we can find players that are a good fit. Doesn't mean we won't be looking also in Ontario and Vancouver and other parts of Canada, other parts of the U.S. as well. But we feel like we've had some players that have had a good experience here. They'll pass that along to players that are younger than them, so they can kind of have a first-hand information from somebody that they know they played against or grew up playing with.
I think he's realized that it's a pretty easy sell to tell Canadians, hey, do you want to come down and play outdoors? You're 10 minutes from the beach. So it's easy that way, and so it's just making sure that the player's adaptable to his demands. Even now that I'm about to be an alumni, I'm still going to be saying, hey, if I see a good player and be like, oh, hey, you should contact this coach. I think you'd fit their style.
The success of the Nova Scotia-JU marriage is really hinged on one thing: the quality of the person representing the Dolphins.
Nova Scotia is one of the smaller provinces population-wise in Canada, so they kind of have a blue-collar mentality. They don't necessarily have as many kids to pick from. They don't have as big a pool of players, so they work probably as hard or harder than any of the other provinces because they're kind of one of the smaller ones. And that's a great fit for us here at JU, being we play a lot of schools that have maybe bigger student populations than us.
I think the biggest thing is Coach Cobham did a really good job picking good people. I know there's a lot of talk sometimes in sports where you're picking up a good athlete or a good player, but they might not just fit with the mold of the team. But with this group of girls, they're very easy to adapt to their surroundings.